7. Okay. Hey guys, welcome to round 7, which I've just been informed of because I apparently don't know how to count anymore.
Thanks for paying attention, Regina.
It's been a long day.
Welcome
Extended
to Texas.
When we add around to everything, I don't know. I had a lot of sugar too, so that's probably
that'll do it.
got ice cream and chocolate.
There you go.
That had Pop Rocks in it.
Not a fan. No.
No, it was really good.
Pass on that one. But yes, we are here with round 7. We're down into our win and in territory here, so we are going to bring you matches from X1 players over the next 2 rounds, so that we'll be hopefully featuring players that are playing, you know, for their tournament lives here, which definitely kind of like ups the stakes.
Which is like good for us, but bad for them.
Increases the drama. It's a lot of fun to watch. So the match that we do have for you guys is a really exciting pull here in round 7 between Aaron Traylor and Tommy Cooleen. So 2 players local not local to here, to the Northeast. Aaron, of course, is in New England, with Tommy being from the New York, New Jersey metro area, and both extremely strong players that do very well in pretty much every regional that they come to. Aaron, of course, had his best season as a VGC player the last time that we had a restricted format back in 2016, when he did finish as a runner-up at U.S. Nationals prior to the switching over to the international program. And then he was, I believe, 8th at Worlds. So a really strong player in these restricted formats and good player in his own right. Of course, Tommy had his best season in 2017, when he was really just kind of throwing rain all over the place. And that's exactly that's exactly what he's doing today. He is back to some of those strategies that were so effective for him back when he had, I believe, 3 consecutive international top 8s. So really good player, both really good players, and of course here in this do or die match, it's really exciting to watch.
Yeah, and that's kind of nice because like I know that Tommy was taking a break for a while as well, but we are going to have the teams right up on the screen for you guys, going straight into team preview here. They're just ready to go. We do have Aaron on the left side of your screen with that Xerneas, Lunala, Toxicoke, Smeargle, Incineroar, and I did not think I would ever see this again.
He's back.
And then on your right side, we've got Tommy with that Kyogre, Xerneas, Ludicolo, Stakataka, Incineroar, and Smeargle.
Yeah, and Landorus T is really kind of the Pokemon that jumps off the page for you here. I'm not really sure we'll necessarily see it in this match, although it is an option for Aaron because it does do extremely well against things like Stakataka and Incineroar, which is, you know, one of the niches that it has. And in that sense, you know, given that Incineroar and Stakataka both are kind of like natural enemies to Xerneas, that's kind of where Landorus Therian comes in. And then it also is a wrinkle that's kind of been seen. I believe there were a couple of top 8s with it in some of the Latin America special events down south, where they were kind of using it as a way, I believe in those compositions, I'm not really sure what Aaron's is, but they were running safety goggles, so it was kind of a way to deal with certain compositions that featured heavily on like Amoonguss and Venusaur, and compositions that were like supporting Groudon. So it's kind of an interesting wrinkle. It does pretty well to try and, you know, flip matchups that this particular Xerneas Lunala team would have difficulty with.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see exactly how they kind of handle that, especially because I think Toxicoke is also an interesting Pokemon to have back here. That dry skin, especially against things like Kyogre.
You'll definitely see it here.
It's going to be a really tough kind of Pokemon to fight against. But we do have the Xerneas Kyogre lead here from Tommy's side, and now we've got Aaron here leading with Smeargle and Xerneas as well. So both of them leading with that Xerneas. Obviously, that Smeargle, you know, kind of like a classic sort of companion to Xerneas.
Oh yeah, real throwback to Aaron's 2016 days, where I'm sure he won his fair share of matches with this very lead. It can be very difficult to deal with, not as difficult it was to deal with back in yesteryear when it did have access to Dark Void, which put on a lot more pressure than Spore does because of the double slot nature of the Sleep move, but it still does a lot to support Xerneas, where it can, you know, wick away attacks with, you know, follow me. It has Fake Out, as we're going to see here, anything like Wide Guard, Crafty Shield, a lot of ways to support Xerneas.
And that Fake Out stopping that Kyogre from moving on this turn, as this Xerneas now on Aaron's side is going for that Geomancy, so we are going to get those Geomancy setups potentially here as well from Tommy's side. But now we got that +2 to that speed, that special defense, and that special attack, which I don't think we're ever going to see it really go away for most of Moon Series.
Oh, definitely not.
Especially because Xerneas is just such a nice Pokemon to have. And now we've got that double Geomancy here on the field. Tommy matching that with his own. So both of these Xerneas now are going to, you know, be, I guess, their own counter to each other here.
Right, and this is where it becomes kind of an unfortunate time to be Kyogre, where you can come onto the field in turn 1, be threatening a lot of offensive pressure, but when you don't get to do anything and the Xerneas in your face sets up Geomancy, all of a sudden all the pressure that you're exerting go away because depending on how Kyogres are trained, they can use some investment to survive a +2 Moonblast from Xerneas, I believe, but not all of them are trained that way. So Tommy's going to have to think very immediately about trying to pivot his Kyogre out here, and this kind of situation is exactly what he is a big fan of Stack Attacka for. I had to listen to him talk about it for quite a while last night about how good Stack Attacka is, so I think he definitely has it hiding in the back somewhere for this kind of situation.
So if he doesn't bring it out, you can just be like, hey, what happened to Stack Attacka being
where's
good?
your wall now, Tommy?
So we do have the Moonblast going into that Kyogre.
And it is EV to take it.
But it does get a special attack drop, which is going to be super important against that Kyogre. We have that opposing Moonblast actually going to the Smeargle now is going to activate that Focus Sash, keeping that Smeargle around for one more turn. And a Scald actually now from this Kyogre going to pick up the knockout on that Smeargle.
Right, so that's a really well-played turn by Tommy, I think, because I don't think Aaron was expecting that Moonblast to be taken by Kyogre there, and that's kind of one of the things that you can do when you play around with the way you train your Pokemon, and a lot of times these Kyogre are just like kind of timid with max speed and max special attack so that you can compete in the Scarf Kyogre pod race, but instead it's gotten a little bit more special defense investment, maybe some HP, so that it can take that for situations exactly like this. And now if he so chooses, he can kind of reset, get Kyogre off the field and be threatening Origin Pulses later in the game.
Yeah, and now we've got that Lunala now from Aaron's side, which also Lunala Xerneas, obviously, you know, Jeremy and Ashton have made that a really scary combination to kind of see together. I mean, this Lunala with that Shadow Shield has the potential for the Z move as well. So
and it can Psych Up too.
Oh gosh. If we see that, I will actually be really happy if we see that. But we do have that Kyogre getting switched out now, and we're going to be having that Stack Attack. So there's the Pokemon there for you. And we've got the Xerneas now going for that Moonblast, going to go into Tommy's own Xerneas. But because both of them have, have already Geomancy'd, it just does half here. We are going to get that break in the Shadow Shield now. And does a lot of damage, but we do get a Psych Up.
There it
Woo!
is. There it is, and of course, Lunala, with kind of the switch to Moon Series, does like to carry that Z move, so it will have the opportunity to go for a +2 special attack boosted Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom into that Stack Attacka. And while Stack Attacka is a fabulous check to Xerneas, it is less of a fabulous check to +2 Lunala, and that's why Psych Up can be such a good move in these kinds of Xerneas Lunala compositions. It's just so scary where you're trying to deal, you use resources to try and handle Xerneas, and then all of a sudden you leave that slot alone for one turn and the boosts can transfer over.
And Tommy protecting his Xerneas on this turn, not going to take some of that, any of those attacks, as we actually get a double protect here as well. That Stack Attack hiding behind a protect. We have a Moonblast now from Aaron's Xerneas going into Tommy's Xerneas, and now we've got that Z move. But both of these Pokemon are hiding behind protect, so not going to take as much damage as they would have otherwise. So we do get to sit through this again.
Right, we do. We're going to get to see the Z movie here. And, sometimes you think, oh, man, there's the protect. It's a shame that, he's not going to be able to get his attack off onto that slot. But because he's boosted and because, Stack Attack does have slightly lower special defense, the amount of damage that this Menacing Moonraze Maelstrom is going to do to Stack Attack is likely going to be a good amount and enough to put it into range of just a regular Moongeist Beam. So it doesn't matter that he's not able to pick up this immediate one-hit KO here because next turn, Tommy hasn't really done anything to reset his position here, so he can just go for 2 attacks again, and there's not anything, that Tommy can do to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, that did so much damage. It's almost at the health. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I think, without that protect, it definitely would have just been able to wipe that Stack Attack off. Yeah. It would have caused that wall to fall.
And it's going to fall this turn anyway, and it looks like Tommy's actually going to try and preserve it here, but I don't think there's anything that he's got in the back, barring maybe a normal type that could switch in and take it, and instead this whale is going to be the sacrificial lamb for the turn.
So we do have Aaron's Xerneas going first again, going to be able to pick up the knockout now on Tommy's Xerneas. So no more, matching those Moonblasts, as we've now got that Moongeist Beam going to pick up that knockout on that Kyogre. So Tommy going to be forced to have his last 2 Pokemon on the field, preserving that Stack Attack. I think trying to hope that maybe he can get that Gyro Ball into that Xerneas for later on.
And I think, guessing based on the way that Tommy's played this, I would expect that he has Incineroar in the back, and he's going to bring in Incineroar, Stack Attacka, and then try and fake out Xerneas, fake out Xerneas, get Trick Room up, and then hope, that maybe through some misplay that he's able to keep Stack Attack around in order to get that Trick Room up, because if he's able to get Trick Room up, that actually puts him into a pretty good position, given that Lunala has had its Shadow Shield broken. Stack Attack is able to comfortably knock out pretty much all Xerneas with the Gyro Ball, so that would flip the position very significantly, but there are very few situations in which Aaron is going to that Trick Room to get up here.
And then, like, the nice thing too is if you're Aaron, you haven't been forced yet to show that last Pokemon that you have in the back. So we do get that Incineroar faking out into that Xerneas. So obviously flinching this turn. We do have the Moongeist Beam now as well from that Lunala. Again, at +2 thanks to that Psych Up from a couple turns ago. So still a kind of crazy threat. It's going to go into that Stack Attack and it's going to pick up that knockout as well. So obviously not a lot that Tommy can do to stop this. Incineroar is not really the most offensive pressure Pokemon out
right,
there.
and it is a great Pokemon, into this matchup specifically, but not when it's a 3v1 and both of these Pokemon on Aaron's side of the field have, +6 stages of boosts at this point. So Tommy is going to lock in that forfeit. He did have, like I said, if he was able to get that Trick Room up, he had, a little glimmer of hope if he was able to generate offense, but it kind of involved him calling correctly whether or not Aaron was going calling the Protect correctly. If he had Protected and then used Incineroar to just knock out that Lunala, he could have maybe gotten the Trick Room up and been able to pull it around, but instead Aaron just goes right for the Moongeist Beam and ends the game very promptly. And that was just really a great example of why people are playing this archetype right now. It's just such a phenomenal offensive presence, and we know what Xerneas can do on its own, and then you take those boosts and give them to a Pokemon that is arguably better
one of the
offensively,
best,
right?
especially one of the best Pokemon now in this format, like that Shadow Shield and like the Z move. It's such a terrifying combination.
Yeah, it's so scary, and that's exactly what it was. We saw it do 40% to a Stack Attack with its Z move through Protect.
Gosh.
So it's just such a strong option, and obviously Aaron played it incredibly well there, needing only really 3 Pokemon to take
I'm
Tommy
actually
down
super
there.
curious to know what his last Pokemon was. Well, I think the hard part too was for Tommy, that Kyogre wasn't able to really do anything. After getting faked out, it took so much damage and it knocked out the Smeargle, which was nice because you don't have to worry about, those like potential evasion boosts and like the lovely kisses and all that. But it didn't do the damage that you expected Kyogre to do. And I think that really hurt Tommy in the end because then he was forced to kind of play offense with supportive Pokemon.
Right. And I think what Tommy's going to have to do here in Game 2 is he's definitely going to have to lean more heavily on his Incineroar. We saw it not even take the field, I believe, until the very end of the game there. And this is a Pokemon that, despite having Toxicroak and Landorus on Aaron's side of the field, Incineroar does insanely well against the combination of Xerneas and Lunala because of some of the moves it can use. Knockoff does a lot of damage onto the Lunala. If it's carrying Snarl, which has recently become very popular, it does phenomenal into this restricted combination. If he's carrying Roar, that could change the game entirely if he's able to use Roar onto Xerneas or Lunala and try and reset those boosts. So it's definitely a Pokemon that's very important and didn't even get a chance to do anything in Game 1.
It needed its spotlight and didn't get it till it was too late. So we might see a little bit of a change here, but we actually get the Xerneas Smeargle now from Tommy's side of the field as opposed to Aaron's. But I think we're going to get now the Lunala and Smeargle. So we have the potential for a Psych Up if, Tommy goes for that Geomancy. But we do have the opposing Smeargles now as well.
Yeah, and this is definitely kind of a lot of interesting dynamics in this turn. 2 Smeargles can come down to a lot of things. Which one's faster? Does one have Spiky Shield? One thing that Aaron does kind of have going for him in this situation is that Tommy can't fake out Lunala, so there are a little bit more options available to Aaron, and he actually does just have the quickest Smeargle, and the Z move is going to come right out here with Xerneas leaving itself open.
Man, that's going to be really rough. I mean, obviously no Psych Up, but that's still going to be a lot of damage into that Xerneas, and like you said, that Xerneas didn't protect it and switch out. Tommy's just going to let this Xerneas take damage, and if it manages to survive this Z move,
it's going to be with very little health.
If it manages to set up Geomancy, if it has to knock out that Lunala because that Lunala could just be like, oh, I'm going to Psych Up, and then, set up my own Xerneas and see what happens from there. I think this is just a good turn for Aaron. Yeah,
I think it's a very good turn for Aaron, and it's something that I've kind of mentioned on stream a lot today is that, sure, nice, you got that Geomancy, but at what cost did you get that Geomancy? And in this situation, it's going to be at the cost of about 90% of Xerneas' health. And Tommy maybe knows and actually plays that, I think, better. I think that was a better option than just going for the Geomancy to break that Shadow Shield, and now it gives his own Incineroar a much better option to try and, tackle that Lunala.
And I mean, it's just going to be... he's in a better position, I think, than we could have expected here. Like you said, breaking that Shadow Shield is always a really important thing to do, because I think I saw a lot in Sensories, at least, that people would ignore it because breaking the Shadow Shield could happen later because Lunala was weak to so many things, but now we've got that Protect here for the Xerneas, so Tommy going to want to make sure that it sticks around for a little bit longer now, as we do have a Psy Shock from that Lunala actually going into that Smeargle. That Sash was broken on that Smeargle here, and we've got a Lovely Kiss as well now from Tommy Smeargle, and it's going to connect with Aaron's Smeargle. Okay, I got that.
Right. A lot of interesting things were going on there. First of all, we saw that Smeargle actually I wasn't actually keeping tabs on it, but apparently he got defense boost last turn because it was able to take that Psy Shock from Lunala pretty comfortably. And then we saw that apparently the Smeargles were also speed tying, because we saw Aaron's use Fake Out onto Tommy's in turn 1, and then Tommy, of course, has the quicker sleep move there, with in this case it being Lovely Kiss. And like you said last turn, Regina, it's not positioned for Tommy, but it's a better position than we could have expected, maybe, given that he definitely had an unfavorable turn 1. Yeah,
but that Protect now from that Xerneas and no Pokemon going into it, now that Xerneas is kind of in a really tight spot, and if it doesn't, manage to get any attacks off, it's going to get knocked out this turn. But that Follow Me from Tommy Smeargle is going to help a little bit with that, as we get the Psy Shock once more going now into that Smeargle because of that Follow Me. It's going to pick up the knockout here, but Aaron Smeargle did take that sleep turn from that previous turn, and now we've got the Geomancy set up here.
Yep.
But
this is maybe Tommy trying to work himself into a little bit better position here. I think those last 2 turns went pretty well for him. That Shadow Shield is already busted, so he can knock out the Lunala with a Moonblast. But of course, Aaron still does have 2 Pokemon in back. If his Smeargle wakes up and is able to use a Follow Me, that could definitely be problematic for Tommy here. So we're back to, this was a situation that we used to see a lot in 2016, where it was like, okay, something's asleep. This could happen, this Moody Boost could happen, this Accuracy drop could happen, maybe the Moonblast will get a special attack drop, and it's something that we see a little bit less in 2019 format, because Smeargle is a little bit less prevalent thanks to the loss of Dark Void, but this, really throwing back to Aaron's glory days here.
I will say that I think Kyogre is in a really nice spot to come in here, because now that it can't be faked out, and Smeargle can't exactly use Follow Me, because, Kyogre has that access to Origin Pulse and Water Spout, being at full health in the rain as well, has just that damage output that I was looking for in game 1.
Right.
And especially against that Lunala. That Lunala is so threatened right now. And it's going to hide behind that Protect because it knows how much trouble it's in.
Right, and he is able to also set up an offensive position here, where he has to make Smeargle choose between using potentially Follow Me and Wide Guard, instead of, being able to just shut down one offensive option. But here is the Water Spout, which is going to do a lot of damage to Smeargle, and actually just avoid its Focus Sash thanks to those special defense drops, but it does take its last turn of sleep here, so it should be able to wake up, I believe.
Yeah, and I think it's still now that choice of, do you go for the Wide Guard and stop that from, knocking out? But either way, you're going to lose Pokemon on here, because that Xerneas is now able to go for the Moonblast, is able to just go after this Lunala, and I think because you haven't psyched up yet, I think you have the option now of protecting that Lunala and come back for later, or just letting it go down, because it's already used its Z move, and it can't really do much now because of that shield being broken.
Right, and there actually was a little wrinkle that just got thrown into things at the very end there. Smeargle did get a speed boost, so it should have the opportunity to outspeed Kyogre here. We saw that Tommy was not running Timid Max Speed, and I think Smeargle at +2 will outspeed it anyway, so a sleep move into that Kyogre slot could definitely shut down a lot of some of the things that Tommy would do, as Tommy takes the field.
We do have that wake up there. We are going to get the Follow Me here, and I think Toxicroak is such a smart switch in here, because that Dry Skin makes it so that it doesn't get, so it'll heal up later on. We do have the Moonblast now, going to be able to knock out that Smeargle. This Toxicroak is going to come in, take Water Spouts really nicely. It won't even get any damage, because that Dry Skin ability is such a good counter to a Pokemon like Kyogre, which is still going to dominate this format.
Right, and now that Toxicroak was able to take the field for free, it's able to go for, like a fake out onto Xerneas, and this could actually give Aaron an opportunity to set up his own Geomancy here. So definitely a much better position than he was in. It was looking really scary for him, staring down that Scarf Kyogre locked into Water Spout and the boosted Xerneas anyway, but it looks like he's able to pull it back a little bit here, and he is going to bring out his own Xerneas, and he's going to have to take the Water Spout for his troubles here. but will be able to work himself back into a better offensive position. And as we saw in Game 1, Aaron Xerneas was consistently outspeeding Tommy, so that's something that definitely matters here.
Yeah, and I mean, now that I think the Toxic is a good... I wonder if that was the last Pokemon that he had in the back from before, and he just never brought it up because the Kyogre was never a threat.
Yeah.
And so now that we get to see it here in full force, having that fake out pressure on your side against a Pokemon like a set of Xerneas and like that Smeargle, that Kyogre going to get withdrawn because it doesn't want to help heal up that Toxicroak. We are going to get that Stack Attacka though back on the field here.
Yeah. And the fake out into Xerneas there will allow a Geomancy for free, actually. I was kind of wondering if Tommy was going to trade the Geomancy for Water Spout damage, but instead he will take the opportunity to get Stack Attacka back onto the field.
I mean, Stack Attack is also, I think, a good pivot here, especially against something like Toxicroak and Xerneas, where now I think the two of them are playing a game of choices of which one do you want to see go down and which one are you willing to sacrifice here, right? Like we mentioned before, Aaron's Xerneas was consistently faster in Game 1, and not sure, if like that's a train thing or if just Aaron's been really lucky winning speed ties here, but that is something I think Tommy needs to keep in the back of his head of trying to figure out if that is a speed tie thing or if he's going to try to gamble with that.
Yeah, I think I would be pretty comfortable with it at this point because I believe it outsped it 3 or 4 times in Game 1. So it seems like Aaron has a pretty safe play of just going for Moonblast into the Xerneas slot and then a low kick into Stack Attack to potentially just take 2 knockouts here. So it would kind of involve Tommy doing some pretty fancy footwork here to get out of this one. Stack Attack, is very defensive. I don't think it can take a low kick from the Toxicroak, though.
Yeah, but we are going to get that Kyogre getting switched back in. Yeah, that's something you very rarely see because it's so hard to give those Geomancies, but we are going to have that Kyogre get switched in, gets a Geomancy and Dazzling Gleam, and is going to be at half health. That Stack Attacka is going to get knocked out by that low kick, that weight working very hard, against it. So Tommy doesn't lose 2 Pokemon on this turn, but I think
will next turn.
Yeah, but that Kyogre, it's going to be really tough because now you can Scald if you really want to, so you don't heal up that Toxicroak.
Right.
But you gave up your Geomancy and not gave up the Xerneas, but your Xerneas is already up.
Right, the game's pretty much over at this point. Aaron does have just kind of like a Dazzling Gleam here to just seal up the game, but I think what Tommy was going for was maybe trying to take the low kick with Stack Attacka, which
that's
a
hard roll.
I'm not 100% sure that it can because it's a 4 times effective plus the weight boost. I don't think it can, but maybe it's a bad roll or something like that Tommy was playing to. But Aaron just kind of went right for that there with the Dazzling Gleam followed by the low kick to make sure that, on the off chance, maybe it was a damage roll, that he sealed it up very cleanly. And I think that there was definitely something that was in the matchup was definitely in Aaron's favor. It felt like in a lot of situations, having the faster Xerneas and then having a Lunala, which it seems like Tommy's team actually struggles a little bit with since he wasn't able to really position Incineroar super effectively. But Aaron just played it very, very cleanly, and you can kind of see that with Xerneas, he's got a lot of experience, doing it and
setting up that Xerneas next to Smeargle.
It's just formulaic, right? You have 2 fake out options and a lot of support tools available to you to get it set up. And then once you do, it was pretty clear that Aaron was comfortable with, what to target, how to play the end game, and he just kind of executed it to a T.
I mean, I will say that I think Tommy's game too, he did such a good job adjusting, and I think he did what was necessary. I think Aaron just realized, I'm going to bring that Toxicroak now because I know you have no other choice but to bring in these certain Pokemon. And, it just kind of shows you that, once you've been really good at a format, you kind of understand, like you said, it's really formulaic. You get how to play that game. But I'm so happy we got to see that psych up. That made me really happy.
Yeah, that was really exciting, and just so much damage into that Stack Attacka. And then one last thing I will say about this edit is I think it's really interesting. I don't like from a mental perspective where when you're a player, and in this case Aaron was going into a matchup where you feel pretty strong about your matchup, right? You see the matchup and you're like, I feel good. It definitely enables you to be a little bit bolder with some of the plays that you were making. And there was definitely, not a lot of situations where Aaron was playing cautiously. You saw Tommy had to play backpedal a lot, play a little bit more defensively, and Aaron was just kind of like pressing the attack throughout the
I think we only saw him do protect maybe once or twice, and that was with the Lunala, and that was only when we felt it was necessary. But don't go anywhere. We'll have Aaron right here in this spot in just a little bit. I'm going to pull a disappearing act again, guys, so don't move.